how to generate engaging video podcasts using AI. NotebookLM is a tool by Google that has taken the world by storm recently. You can upload any article or YouTube video and then generate an engaging podcast conversation about that piece of content really easily. The problem is that social media platforms like TikTok or Twitter are not set up to upload audio only. You need a video to go along with it. So today I'm going to show you 1, how to use NotebookLM, and 2, how to turn that audio podcast into a video podcast with engaging AI hosts. And you can use this to amplify your own content. For every blog post you write or product launch that you have, you can generate a podcast about it. You can create a new social media channel with daily content in this podcast format, or so many other ideas. So in this video, first I'll show you the basics of generating this video podcast. Next, I'll give you advanced tips for how to take this video podcast to the next level. And then finally, I'll end by giving you content ideas that are fresh and interesting. Here's a snippet of the podcast that I'm going to teach you how to make. If you want to watch the whole thing, it's linked in the comments below.
So conditioned to focus on setting these big goals. But James Clear suggests we should actually be focusing more on building systems. So can you help me unpack this a little bit? What's the difference between a goal and a system? And why are systems so important?
Well, it's really a subtle but powerful shift in perspective. Goals are all about the results you want to achieve. While systems are about the processes that actually help you get there, it's kind of like setting out on a sea voyage. Your goal might be to reach the specific island, but the system is everything that gets you there.
Let's jump in on how to make this. So NotebookLM is very easy to use and it's free. You just go to notebooklm.google and then try NotebookLM right here. And then we are going to create a new notebook using this button. And the first thing it'll ask is to upload sources. So I want to generate a podcast about a book that I really like called Atomic Habits. So I'm going to go and do a quick Google search to find a book summary. All right, so here is the official Atomic Habits summary by James Clear himself. And what I'm going to do is copy this URL right here, go back into NotebookLM, and you'll see we have a bunch of options here for the type of source that we upload. So it can be a document upload, we can do a PDF, MP3, we can link to things in our Google Drive, we can paste text in. What I'm going to do is link to the website. So I'm going to click website right here and paste in that URL. And that's it. We can see on the left that this source has been added. It has a blue check mark next to it now. And so now all we need to do is come to this audio overview section and press generate. So it's generating our audio podcast. It'll take a few minutes to generate, but when it's done, we'll have a full audio podcast about Atomic Habits. You are not limited to just a single source when you're generating these podcasts. So if we come back here to this sources on the left and click the plus sign for add source, we can keep adding links or PDFs. You can upload up to 50 different sources here and then generate a podcast about all of them together. All right, here we go. Our podcast is complete. Let's listen to a little bit of it.
All right, get ready because we're going deep into Atomic Habits today. You know, you sent in some notes about James Clear's book and...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and honestly, even getting ready for this has me like rethinking my whole routine.
Yeah, it's one of those books that really makes you think differently.
For sure. Like that whole...
There we go. How easy was that? All right, so a couple of tips here. Honestly, I typically generate more than one version when I'm doing this. The first thing I would recommend is just go ahead and download this version so you have it and have a record of it. And then what you can do is delete and then generate again. You can add more sources and regenerate, or you can add this customization prompt here. So this customized box is, you can think about it as if you were the producer of this podcast giving notes to the host of like, for the podcast that I generated, I used this prompt right here. Talk about your top 3 favorite takeaways from the book Atomic Habits. and then I generate it away. Now, I will say I have not been able to figure out how to control the length of these podcasts. They always seem to be about 10 to 20 minutes, no matter how many sources or how few sources I have in there, or if in that prompt I write, make it very short or make it less than 2 minutes. It doesn't matter. It just always makes it 10 to 20 minutes. If you're able to figure out how to control the length of these things, please let me know because I'm very curious. All right, so feel free to experiment with this until you're happy with your podcast. So now that we have our podcast, let's transition to preparing the audio file. So I'm going to switch into Premiere Pro, and I'll see you there. All right, so in this next step, we have to prepare the audio file. So what that means is we have to separate the two speakers from each other. We have to separate their voices into different audio tracks and then export those. So this is a new project in Premiere Pro. You can use any video editor or even a music editor like GarageBand would work for this. We just basically need to take this audio file and split it up into different segments. So I'm going to drag in the audio podcast here. It's a WAV file, import that into the timeline. And as you can see, it's a 13-minute audio right here. All right, so content tip, and this is my strong recommendation. When you're creating these video podcasts to put onto TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn, what do you see when people have, regular podcasts that they're putting on those platforms? They clip it to just the most interesting 30 seconds to 3 minutes max and post these podcast clips. No one will ever post a 13-minute video on LinkedIn or on TikTok, so it's not quite the right format. If you're putting this directly on YouTube and not YouTube Shorts, then you can consider doing the entire podcast in one video. What I'm going to show you here is how to do a podcast clip. And for the vast majority of people, I recommend that you do a podcast clip, that you listen to your NotebookLM podcast and then find the most compelling snippets to turn into a video. I have already listened to this, and my favorite part of this podcast is their conversation around their second key takeaway. So let me find that spot in the audio and then show you what we're going to do. Okay, so this discussion around this second insight is what I'm going to use for my podcast clip. So basically what I'm going to do now is separate out the two speakers. So I'm just going to listen to it, and whenever it's a speaker switch, I am going to clip the audio file there. And then what I like to do is drag it into a different row here, just so that visually I can see the two speakers.
The importance of systems over goals. And this is something that I think we all struggle with. We're so conditioned to focus on setting these big goals. But James Clear suggests we should actually be focusing more on building systems. So can you unpack this a little bit? What's the difference between a goal and a system, and why are systems so important?
Well, it's really
Okay, so this is switching to the woman here. I'm going to zoom in. I think it happens right here.
Important.
Well, it's really
And this is, you can see it's really nice to have the waveform here so I can precisely kind of see where there's that pause and where like the cut should happen.
subtle but powerful shift in perspective. Goals are all about the results you.
So you'll hear here there was a little interjection by the man. He goes, I'll play it for you.
Goals are.
So it depends what I do in these situations. Sometimes I just leave it in here. Sometimes I crop them out. Sometimes I'll actually separate out the interjection into speaker 1, speaker 2, and like generate a video around it. So here, let me just cut this out just so I can show you how I do that.
Perspective. Goals are.
So it's just this little part of the waveform. Delete that. Let's listen to it.
Perspective. Goals are all about the results you want to achieve.
Sounds pretty good.
While systems are about the processes that actually help you get there, it's kind of like setting out on a sea voyage. Your goal might be to reach the specific island, but the system is everything that gets you there. The ship, the sails, the navigation tools, the crew. It's the entire framework that supports that journey.
I love that analogy. It makes it...
Okay, so switch of speakers here. So I'm going to crop it. So now these two sections were the woman. So I'm going to drag her into this different row here so that I can visually keep these apart. So I'm just going to continue this process and I will show you what that looks like in a second. All right, so here we go. This is what the final output looks like. This is that entire section. So my podcast clip ended up being about 2 minutes. You can see the 2-minute timestamp right around here. And the male host is at the top and the female host is at the bottom. You can see these places where these cuts here are where I cropped out some short interjection. But I left this short interjection in here. So let me play that for you to show you kind of what these two sections sound like.
That system is what led to those remarkable achievements.
That's such a great point. It wasn't about the outcome, it was about the process.
Precisely. Like James Clear.
So you can see that was a bit longer, and so I actually want to have a corresponding video there, and so I actually separated it out. Okay, so now we are going to export these segments, and what I prefer to do is to just actually export these chunks at a time. So in Premiere Pro, the really nice thing you can do is just drag these mark in, mark out markers. So the other thing you can do is double click and say, mark out at this point, or you can just drag it right around your audio clip. So I'm going to export, send to media encoder. All right, so we're in the media encoder. So first we're going to export this as an MP3, not a video. And then I'll give you the way I like to name these, 01, because it's the first clip. And then just so I know, it's the man. And so I'm going to just save this and export that. Now I'm going to come back to Premiere Pro and go on to the next clip. So I'm going to mark in, mark out here. This mark in, mark out makes it so that when we export, it is only exporting the content in between these two markers. So I'm going to come back here, file export, send to media queue. Again, make it an MP3. And then I'm going to say 02 woman. I put the number first so that when I have all these clips together, I know what order they're in. And then I put, man, woman, it would be like speaker 1, speaker 2, so that when I'm generating the videos, it's easy to know which image should go with which audio clip. All right, so let's repeat this for all of these segments here until we're done, and I will show you what that looks like. All right, so here are our audio clips right here. So you can see we have 9 total, and they're alternating between man, woman, man, woman. Perfect. So now we've prepared our audio file. So now let's go into Infinity and actually generate our video clips. All right, so I am at studio.infinity.ai. Make sure that you log in so that you have access to the complete set of features. So the first thing we're going to do is design our characters for the male and the female. So I am going to go to text image. If we have an image that we know we like, we can just upload it here. But I'm going to show you how to design a new character from scratch. So let's say a male podcaster, neutral expression, facing the camera directly. And let's generate an image. Okay, so not bad. I really want his shoulders to be like fully facing the camera though. So let's try again. Honestly, that would work, but I recommend when I see an image that I like and could be one that I actually go with, I generate a quick test video. So I'm going to upload audio. And then remember we had this short little interjection from the man here. So I'm going to upload that. Just a 3-second clip I can play.
That's such a great point. It wasn't about the outcome, it was about the process.
Great. So now let's generate a test clip. So I recommend do this intermediate resolution. So a total of 250,000 pixels, turn crop face off, and then I'm just going to generate one video right here, but we'll increase that in a second. And I'm going to submit that to queue. So we try one more time. Not bad. One more, let's see. Okay, so I kind of like this guy too. Let's generate a test clip with him and see what happens. Submit to queue. So when you submit to queue, you see these two generations here are in progress. When they're finished, the video will actually pop up here. So now let's try to design the female podcaster. So that's basically all we have to change. Let's generate her image. Okay, nice. Yeah, she's a bit of an angle, so I want the straight on view. 2 microphones. Don't really like that. Okay, she's pretty good. So let's generate a test clip with her. So let's generate 1 video there. And then let's try to find a few more options for her. I think she's pretty good. Let's try her. And she's pretty good too. So let's try her as well. Okay, so we can see that our 2 test examples for the man finished. So I'm going to play them and see how these look.
That's such a great point. It wasn't about the outcome, it was about the process.
That's actually really good.
That's such a great point. It wasn't about the outcome, it was about the process.
Okay, so his eyes are funny, but the generation is good. Like if I repeated the generations, I think we would fix the funny eyes. Basically, every time that you generate, you get a different video. So there's stochasticity in every generation, but I really like him. But let's just go with this guy and I'll show you guys how to push forward on this. There is this I button here that has the information about our generation. And then there is a copy to editor. So when I press that, what's going to happen is when I come back up here, it's going to have his photo back on the image and then the audio that we generated him with uploaded as the audio. So I'll show you.
That's such a great point. It wasn't about...
And so it's really easy to generate the same thing again. What I'm going to do is actually start generating the actual podcast content. So I'm going to upload audio and I'm going to start with number 1. Organize these. So number 1, man. So now this is a 23-second audio clip. I like this resolution. Now I'm going to generate 3 videos at a time and submit these to Q. And then I'm going to go on to the next male podcaster audio clip. So that's number 3 here. Upload that. This is a 16-second clip. Keep all of these same parameters. We're going to do 3 at a time. Submit those to Q. So you can see there are 6 videos in progress right here. 3 from the first audio clip, 3 from the second one. And we're just going to keep doing this for all of the male clips. And then we have to pick our woman. So we're going to go through the same process. We are going to watch these 3 test clips. If we like any of them, great. We can go to copy to editor and just move forward with her. If we don't, no problem. We just keep generating image options until we find one that we're happy with. So now I'm just going to plug and chug on these video generations for all our male and all our female audio clips. And then let's talk once I finish that. All right, guys, I am done generating video clips, and this is what my video history looks like. I actually ended up going with a different guy here. So now let's talk about keeping track of the generations. That's where these really handy emojis come in. So you can see here, there are these emojis to pick from. And my personal process is that when I find something that is pretty good, I give it a yellow. And when it's the one that I actually want to download, I give it a green. I also sometimes kind of, instead of the green, do a 100, or if there's something good, I'll give it a thumbs up. If something's really bad, I'll, do the vomit face. I went through for all of these clips and picked my favorite ones, the ones in green right here. And then now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and download these. And we are in the home stretch now. Wasn't that so easy? Honestly, the most time-consuming part is splitting that audio file into the different speaker tracks. But now all we have to do is basically put all these clips together in order, and then we're done. So I am going to go into my video editor, CapCut, and I will see you there. All right, so this is a new project in CapCut. I could use Premiere Pro again. I just kind of like some of the animations and stock footage features in CapCut. But honestly, it doesn't matter. Use whatever your favorite video editor is. So I have downloaded all of those green clips, and now I'm going to put them together in order in CapCut. All right, I am done. So this is currently a square video. My favorite format for this actually is to do vertical. So let me transition to a vertical aspect ratio here. I'm going to do 9:16. And then I like to do a title at the top. So I'm just going to do a quick title here. And that is it, you guys. We are done. You just made a awesome, engaging video podcast in just a few minutes. All we have to do is export this and then upload it to our favorite social media platform. All right, so at the start, I promised that I would give you guys advanced tips to take your video podcast to the next level. So that was the basic tutorial. Now let's talk about those extra pizzazz things that you can do to really elevate your creation. The first thing is stock footage. So I'm going to show you some quick tips on how I like to do stock footage in CapCut really easily. So the way that I do this is these image-based ones I got from Google Image Search. Like, let me drag in a new image here. I want to give this some nice animation because as is, it's just basically going to transition from the video straight to the image.
That supports that journey.
I love that analogy.
So kind of boring. But if we come into the animation panel here, and then there's all sorts of animations that we can pick from that make it look fancy with no work. And you can do an animation in, which is how the photo will appear, and an animation out, which is how the photo will leave. Or there's also combinations that they kind of do both things for you. I generally like doing the animations in. For example, I used this. Having
I love that
snapshots,
analogy. It makes it
are pretty cool. And you can extend the duration here. So if we wanted to make that animation last 2.5 seconds.
I love that analogy. It makes it so much clearer.
So that feels pretty good. You can make this longer or shorter here in the duration section. Let's try one more fun one. Let's see. Let's try this. This fractal lens.
I love that analogy. It makes it so much clearer.
So that's the photo-based B-roll. Other type of B-roll that CapCut makes so easy to do is stock footage. So if you go into the import section here, stock materials, you can search for all sorts of different content. So there's a moment in the podcast here where she's making an analogy to sailing. So let's try to find some sailing videos. Okay, so here she's talking about sailing. So let me just drag in this B-roll clip. It's horizontal. So we have a couple options. We can make it square, or we can make it take up the entire vertical aspect ratio like this.
Island, but the system is everything that gets you there. The ship, the sails.
Let's see if we can find the captain of boat. Oh, this one's kind of cool. You can play these. If you double click, play that out. Let's see. Boat crew. Could be good. Ooh. What about this one? Okay, let's try that. So let's see how this looks.
Thing that gets you there. The ship, island, but the system is everything that gets you there. The ship, the sails, the navigation tools, the crew. It's the entire framework that supports that journey.
I love that analogy. It makes it so much clearer. So,
all right, so you get the idea. The final piece of B-roll advice that I wanted to give, and I typically don't do these, but it does make the video pretty engaging, is to have B-roll happening in the background. So let me show you how to do that. Let's take this workers clip here, and let's say we wanted to have this going on in the background, not necessarily foreground, as she's talking. So, oops, we are going to open it up here. We actually have to move the hosts one level up. So let me show you what this looks like.
To the specific island, but the system is everything that gets you there. The ship, the sails.
So you kind of get the idea. Obviously, I would kind of change up this text up here if I were to do this approach and give it an outline so that you can actually read it. But it's just a way to kind of have stuff happening on screen while your hosts are talking, and it's pretty engaging and very easy to do. All right, so that is B-roll. The next thing that you can do to elevate your video is add captions. Not just boring old captions, though, interesting, engaging ones. So let me show you how I like to do this. All right, so I like to use a site called submagic.co. There are a ton of different captioning tools out there that you can use. This is just one that I like. All right, so we are going to upload our video right here. So once your video finally uploads, you'll see a screen like this with lots of different caption options. So let me show you some of my favorites. So this Ollie one that's selected right now is just a very classic one.
So let's dive into the second takeaway from Atomic Habits. And this is where things get really interesting.
So you can see very simple, easy to read. There are also these Hormozy options.
So let's dive into the second takeaway from Atomic Habits. And this is where things get really interesting. The importance of system.
More color emojis that come up. So that's Hormozy 2. For this video here, I think I'm going to choose this yellow, this William, because it matches the yellow up here. And it just gives it a pretty classic look. And it has emojis as well. So anything that has this smiley face up here is a caption style that has emojis. So I really like this. I'm going to go with this. Just something to mention, you can edit the theme here and specifically edit the colors that are being shown. And then you can come into captions and then edit the words if there's anything that's misspelled or anything you want capitalized or punctuation that you want different. You can specifically edit all of this here. And then when you're done, you can just export and you're ready to go. All right, so those are captions, and those significantly elevate your videos, especially for like text-first platforms like LinkedIn or Twitter, where people don't necessarily have the audio on. It's really helpful to have an engaging caption there so they can still kind of follow along. And then if it's interesting enough, they may choose to turn on the audio based on the captions they're seeing. And then finally, my last advanced tip to leave you with is around changing the voices. So NotebookLM is amazing, and it has this magical, like human-like spark between the two speakers that people find really, really captivating and engaging. The downside is that it is always those two same voices, that man and that woman. It's always the same voices talking to each other, which gets really old. And I immediately recognize now, and if I hear that voice anywhere, I know that the person generated their podcast with NotebookLM. So I'm going to show you how to get over that limitation and actually switch out the voices. And I'm going to use 11 Labs for this. You can use other platforms like Replica Studios does this as well. You basically want to look for platforms that do speech to speech. So you upload an audio file and then you get an audio file out, but that the voice has been modified. To do this in 11 Labs, I'm logged in and I'm going to go to the voice changer feature here. All right, so I'm going to upload an audio here. So let's do this woman, the first woman audio clip here. This is a reminder of what it sounds like.
Well, it's really a subtle but powerful shift in perspective.
And then we can pick a new voice down here to kind of to change it to. So there's lots of different options. We can press the play button to kind of try it out.
Hey, I'm Sophia.
You got to be careful if you don't know where you're going.
I'm going to try this Vivian one and generate that.
Well, it's really a subtle but powerful shift in perspective.
That's really good. This is a reminder of what the original sounds like.
Well, it's really a subtle but powerful shift in perspective.
So totally different person, different voice. And so you can experiment with different voices here and give it a shot. So I'll be honest, I don't think 11 Labs is the best speech-to-speech voice changer out there. I mentioned this briefly, but I really do like Replica. It's replicastudios.com for voice changers. And this can do much more extreme voice changing, even from like male to female. For the males, I find that 11 Labs doesn't change the voice that much, but Replica really does. So let me show you an example of going from a male to a female on here. So let's upload this first male clip. Let me remind you of what that sounds like.
So let's dive into the second takeaway from Atomic Habit.
And then we can pick the voice to change it to right here. This Alex one, let's listen to that.
Hey, you look like you could use a break. Grab a snack.
Let's just try this one and see how that goes. I'm going to press generate.
So let's dive into the second takeaway from Atomic Habits. And this is where
Wow. So that's totally a female voice speaking that now. Again, reminder, this is the original.
And this is where things get really interesting. The importance of system.
Totally different. Replicastudios.com is definitely worth checking out if you're interested in the voice changer element. Again, both of these tools have their pros and cons. I think 11 Labs in general has more natural voices, but less ability to voice change. Replica Studios has a very extreme ability to voice change, but the voices are a little bit less natural, so you have to play around with them a little bit more. But now you will have the ability to generate these podcasts, and no one will be able to guess that you generated them with NotebookLM. You now have infinite characters and infinite voices at your disposal, which is really cool. To conclude this video, I told you that I would give you some fresh, interesting content ideas, so here they are. For every blog post that you write, generate a podcast about it. Just upload your blog into NotebookLM, get a cool, engaging podcast about it, and post it on social media as a way to get your message out there to a wider audience. Some people are more visual learners and they prefer watching things instead of reading, and so this way you can get your message out to a much wider audience, and it's pretty easy to do once you've done the hard work of actually writing the blog post. Another idea is you could start a daily social media channel on news topics. You can pick tech news or politics or celebrity gossip, world events, and basically just upload one news article or a few news articles onto NotebookLM, generate a podcast, turn that into a video, and then you have daily content for a new social media channel. If you're maybe not that much into news, but really love television, you could start a TikTok channel about your favorite TV shows. Every week you would upload a summary of what happened that week in the TV series, and then generate a podcast from there. Or you could start a YouTube channel about book summaries. You could focus on self-help books or biographies, or just a smattering of books that kind of pique your interest. This is literally what I did with doing a summary of Atomic Habits. Or you can create podcasts about science or history. If you're a student, you can upload your lecture notes each week onto NotebookLM and generate a podcast about what you're learning in school. And if you're not a student, you can just pick Wikipedia articles that you think are interesting and generate podcasts about those. One interesting idea is there are Wikipedia articles about every day of the year, like October 29th, October 30th, what happened this day, like last year, 2 years ago, 100 years ago, 300 years ago. And so you could do a podcast about what notable things happened on this day in the past. You could do a whole year of that content. And then the final cool idea that I'll leave you guys with that I saw some folks do on social media is using NotebookLM for self-promotion or even just a pep talk that you can listen to and like feel good about yourself. So the way that this would work is you would upload your resume or your LinkedIn or your portfolio, whatever you have, and then get a podcast of these two hosts talking about how amazing you are. And so you could post that on your portfolio, and then it shows, number one, that you can make cool things and use various AI tools. And then number two, if someone actually watches the video, it's all about how amazing you are and the cool things you've accomplished in your life. So Win-win. All right, that is it, everyone. I hope that this video gave you the skills and the ideas to get started making your own video podcast. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And until next time, thanks for watching.